Landslide warnings issued to 10 districts. Met Department predicts showers exceeding 150 millimeters. Curfew regulations in 23 districts to be relaxed tomorrow. Curfew to continue in Colombo and Gampaha. Farmers continue to suffer in several parts of the country. Advanced level students permitted to use calculators for certain exams. Chinese ambassador to Israel found dead in Tel Aviv home.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. On to our lead story now. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa completes 6 months in the highest office of the country today.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was nominated as the presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana, was voted into power on the 17th of November last year. He secured more than 6.9 million votes while being elected into office. Soon after his election to power, President Rajapaksa met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in November to discuss bilateral matters with Sri Lanka's most important neighbour. The visit saw Prime Minister Modi offering Sri Lanka a line of credit worth $400 million. The President's call for a collective effort for the leaders of all SAARC countries to combat COVID-19 recently drew praise from both local and the international communities. More recently, President Rajapaksa had tabled the country's foreign policy during a conference with the leaders of the non-aligned movement. The President was also lauded by the Director General of the World Health Organization for mobilizing the government in Sri Lanka's fight against the coronavirus.
Ministry of Defence said donating day's salary to government is not applicable to armed forces and police.
Issuing a communique, Defence Secretary retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne said donating a day's salary to the government to overcome the existing financial constraints due to coronavirus pandemic is not applicable to Tri-Forces, police and civil defence services personnel. Last week, President Secretary Dr. P.B. Jayasundara made a request from the public servants to donate their entire, part or day's salary of May to the Widows and Orphans Pension Fund to overcome the financial constraints faced by the government due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, Defence Secretary issuing instructions to the Chief of Defence Staff, Acting Inspector General of Police and the Director General of Civil Security Department said that donating day's salary is not relevant to Tri-Forces, Police and Civil Security Department.
The Department of Meteorology forecasts showers exceeding 150 millimeters in the southern, western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces due to the low pressure area that has intensified into a severe cyclonic storm over the southeast Bay of Bengal. Let's take a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
The Met Department said the cyclonic storm is highly likely to move towards the north during the next 24 hours and recurve towards the north and northeast towards the West Bengal coast during the 20th of May. The cyclonic storm has been named Ampan. Officials of the Met Department said the cyclone does not have a direct impact to Sri Lanka. The Met Department added the sea areas around the island can be fairly rough due to the prevailing weather condition. Meanwhile, officials of the Fisheries Department attempted to contact the fishermen who had gone to sea in their multi-day fishing vessels before the weather condition worsened. Among the groups of fishermen are those from Tangol, Hikkaduwa, Deundara and Balapitiya. Several fishermen on board the vessels were informed of the prevailing weather situation. Fishermen in a number of areas refrained from engaging in fishing activities once again today. In light of the inclement weather, the Met Department informed the fishermen around the country to avoid going out to sea until further notice. A low-pressure zone in the southwest of the Bay of Bengal has led to rough seas around Sri Lanka, which has resulted in the preventive measures. Our reporters stated that fishermen in many areas had remained ashore both yesterday and today. This was the situation in a number of fishing ports, including Devatavella and Ratkamvalla in Gaul. Some of the fishermen spoke to Newsfirst.
With the current economy, it is very difficult to live. We don't have much money. There is not much to eat. I don't know what to do anymore. We don't know how long this will last. We have already diverted those at risk to safe places. We urge everyone to pay attention to our warnings to ensure their own safety.
The landslide warnings issued to 10 districts owing to the inclement weather continues to be in effect. The districts are Gaul, Matale, Ratnapura, Kalutara, Matara, Colombo, Kegaul, Kurunagala, Nuwara and Kandy.
The NBRO has issued landslide warnings due to heavy rains experienced in the country. The warnings have been issued to the 4 Gravats Divisional Secretariat, the Akmimana, Elpitiya, Niyagama, Bope, Poddala, Nagoda, Tavalama and Neluwa Divisional Secretariat areas in the Gaul district, the Ukuel Divisional Secretariat in the Matale district, along with the Ahaliyagoda, Kuruvita and Ayagama Divisional Secretariats in the Ratnapura district. The NBRO requests the public residing in landslide susceptible areas to remain vigilant and to exercise caution while travelling along roads in mountainous areas.
With the change of the weather condition in the country, this was the situation during the past 24 hours.
The Kegaul district has been affected the most due to the inclement weather condition in the country. A 48-year-old man had died after being swept away by currents in the Imbulgasdenia area, while a 65-year-old woman had met her fate after a mound of earth had collapsed onto her home. Nearly 2,000 people have been affected due to the inclement weather in the Kegaul district. The Wakval area in Gaul and its surrounding areas had been inundated due to heavy rains. Our correspondent reported that agricultural lands had been flooded in the locality. The flow of water under the Wakvala bridge, which runs across the Ging River, had been obstructed as the water had been polluted with waste material. "32 houses in the Alpitiya North Gramanadari division had been destroyed as a result of heavy winds. Residents said that a strong wind which had blown across the neighborhood at around 8 a.m. had prevailed for about 10 minutes. Officers attached to the Pittigala army camp had cleared the debris in the area. Our correspondent reported that Gaul District Secretary Somaratna Vidanapatirana had inspected the damages that had been caused due to the turbulent weather. Our roof was blown away by a strong wind. I was with my 3 children. I ran towards one side while my husband ran with the children to the other side. This had taken place at a time when we don't have jobs.
I have informed the Divisional Secretariat, the police and the security forces to inquire into the damaged houses, the roofs of 3 houses that have been completely damaged. We are taking steps to construct temporary shelters for them.
The irrigation department said that the water levels of the Kalu River in the Millakanda area have been increasing during the last few hours. Meanwhile, the Disaster Management Centre said that water levels in other rivers have also been on the rise.
The considering of the fundamental rights petition challenging the holding of general elections on the 20th of June will be taken up tomorrow. The petition was discussed on political platforms today.
Does a country need problems created in it, or do we need to have problems resolved? That is what we must think of as the general public. We must clearly say that the judiciary in a country must not create problems but must resolve them. Even though the opposition is eagerly trying to create problems and gain political advantage through it, I would like to say that most people are looking forward to having these problems solved and moving forward. I firmly believe that this country has a strong and independent judiciary. It will never become a political tool. I would like to say that the judiciary will never act in a manner that causes this country to fall.
The politicians in the Rajapaksa government cannot cite the judiciary. They have no faith in it. This is the only place where a citizen can seek relief. Because the president did not intervene to solve this problem, and because the prime minister of this government or any of its ministers have failed to do this, citizens had to intervene to protect the legislator. We will have to present our case to the judiciary and get a decision from them. But an issue that could be solved through discussions without creating social unrest, the responsibility of that must fall on the Rajapaksa government. We have failed in the independence of the judiciary, so we feel that we can sort out this matter through them. The only relief the people have at this time is in the independent judiciary and the independent commissions.
It is the election commission which will make a decision based on the court ruling. We feel that an environment that is conducive for an election can be created by July. I feel that this virus has served as a blessing in disguise for the opposition to escape the election. The opposition has shown great affection towards the coronavirus. There are no unconstitutional activities at present. I believe that this would be even the same in the future as well. The parliament was dissolved in a very clear manner. There is a method to rule the country when parliament is dissolved. We are following that mechanism, and there is nothing unconstitutional in this.
රට පාලනය කරන ක්‍රමවේදයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ක්‍රමවේදයට අනුව යන්නේ ව්‍යවස්ථා විරෝධයක් මෙතන කිසිම නැහැ. මේ වෙනකොට විශේෂයෙන්ම රටේ
There are two opinions in the country. A group including Gamampilla saying that there is no need to reconvene parliament. However, a majority of the people are saying that the parliament should be reconvened. As a party, we feel that the best place to resolve this problem is the Supreme Court. They are afraid to get there. Mahinda Rajapaksa's faction is afraid of the judiciary. We know the government is going to experience a crushing defeat at the parliamentary election due to the group of lawyers which provide them legal advice. This was the same thing that happened when Mahinda Rajapaksa was appointed as Prime Minister in 2018.
This is definitely an emergency situation. We have never experienced such a situation in our lives. Therefore, the President has a duty to reconvene the Parliament. If a mandate is given to a person, that is done for a specific term and also out of faith. The President cannot use the mandate as per his own whims and fancies. He has to fulfill the mandate based on the aspirations of the people.
We believe that the court will most likely issue an order to reconvene Parliament as there is a constitutional issue here. If that happens, the electoral list will have to change and then the parliamentary elections can be delayed. The people in the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana are acting as law pundits and urging that the election must be held. The court will decide on what needs to be done.
Why is the opposition attacking the judiciary? That is because they do not have valid arguments. This is why they are lying. The United National Party knows that it will be banished from the political arena after the general election. They are urging the defunct parliament to be reconvened. The fate of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna has been decided by Anura Kumara Disanayaka.
We have the Supreme Court. You cannot run a country as you wish. We are asking that Parliament be reconvened, not with the intention of continuing for 6 months.
As citizens of this country, we have always bowed our heads before the decisions of the Supreme Court. So we believe that the President, Prime Minister and Government, as well as the Elections Commission, will act in accordance with the ruling of the court. It is clear that the opposition has no alternate apart from going to court to postpone elections if possible.
ඒ ගරු අධිකරණයට අපි සෑම දිනම අපි නමස්කාර කරන්න ඕන මොකද නීතියට
ගරු අධිකරණය කියන විදිහට මැතිවරණය පැවැත්වීම සඳහා රජය කිසි වෙලාවක පැකිලෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේ මැතිවරණය කල් දාන සූදානමකුත් නැහැ.
උසාවියට ගිහිල්ලා
It is because they kicked out the request by the Commission to go to court that we have to go to court. It is only in the middle of the night that we are told how many COVID patients are there. It is to protect the public and ensure health and safety that we decided to go to court. It is also because not having a functioning parliament for over 3 months is a violation of the constitution. When they are without titles for a small period, they may feel that we are going to court to avoid elections.
මේ මැතිවරණයට බය යන එකක් කියලා.
When that historic verdict is given and if the health authorities give the clearances, we will go ahead with the elections on the date given by the Commission. We do not fear holding of elections. We will certainly obtain a 2/3 majority.
They are trying to push the people towards an election and cause this coronavirus that is being controlled to go out of control again. If you love the people, love the country, and if you plan to re-enter parliament as a representative of the people, you must stand on the side of the people, not to pander to lead and treat people like fools. The court will decide and give a verdict considering all things. The commissioner also has a responsibility here. There are conflicts within it. I am happy. If the 19th Amendment wasn't passed, the elections commissioner would be controlled by the president and hold elections according to his whims and fancies.
With the general elections looming amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, does the President have powers to utilize funds from the Consolidated Fund at a time when Parliament remains dissolved? Views were expressed in this regard during the Davasa program aired on our sister channel, Sirasa TV, this evening.
The President can draw money to cover the expenses that are even deemed necessary by the Election Commission. If an appropriation bill hasn't been passed at a time when Parliament is dissolved and the date for the general election is announced, the President has been permitted to use funds for the election. The previous provision allows the President to utilize funds for state services. Therefore, the President has been granted additional powers to draw money from the Consolidated Fund. This cannot be done at a time when the election is approaching while Parliament remains dissolved. That is because it is the Parliament which is responsible for all the expenses of the government. When the institution that is responsible for government spending remains closed, no one from the highest levels of the government to the grassroots can spend money outside the constitutional framework.
On several occasions, Newsfirst has highlighted the issues that arise when the decisions of several sectors are made while neglecting the people at the grassroots. The problems concerning the agriculture industry are believed to have arisen as a situation in the paddy fields, and the advice given by officials contradict each other. Farmers are facing difficulties to cultivate land-grown crops on marshy lands, although several land-grown crops are cultivated during the ongoing Yalla cultivation season.
Cultivation in these paddy fields are nourished with water obtained from the Mahakanadara River in Anuradhapura. These farmers who previously engaged in paddy farming were instructed by agrarian officers to cultivate land-grown crops and grains during the upcoming Yalla season. However, some farmers have already prepared their paddy fields, while many more refuse to adhere to the instructions of the agrarian officers, as land-grown crops will not grow in paddy fields. Farmers in Hurulueva share the same fate of those in the Mahakanadarava area. These farmers cultivate in more than 10,000 acres of paddy land on an average basis. However, many of these farmers have now been instructed to cultivate grains and other land-grown crops in their fields instead. Farmers question as to how they can cultivate such crops on wetlands. Upon an inquiry made by Newsfirst, the Hurulueva irrigation engineer said that following a meeting convened in March, farmers had been asked to cultivate crops such as soya, corn and green peas. He said that this decision had been made with regard to the scarcity of water that could arise moving forward. The shortage of fertilizer is one of the many issues faced by farmers across the island. While fertilizer of any kind is not available in certain areas, the required type of fertilizer is not available in sufficient quantity in other areas. 85 families in the village of Popitia who live on the bordering areas of Dumbara Hunnasgiriya Wildlife Sanctuary earn a living through farming. Although the cultivation of paddy has commenced for the Yalla cultivating season, these farmers have not yet received fertilizer concessions. They do not have a place to at least purchase paddy. Farmers who travel to the village of Hasalaka in Ududumbara return to their fields empty-handed.
The government is asking us to cultivate crops or hand over our fields to another person. Although a month has passed, we haven't received a single grain of fertilizer. The crops have turned yellow as they lack fertilizer. No one pays attention to us. We don't have fertilizer now. We are cultivating crops after obtaining loans. I feel that it would be good if fertilizer is given to us immediately.
This farmer has begun cultivation across 60 acres of land near water bodies in a bid to reap a good harvest. Crops such as corn, chili and pumpkin are cultivated in other areas. Farmers complain that officials have not taken steps to resolve their issues.
We are living very poor lives. We don't have fertilizer, at least to cultivate corn for ourselves. We cannot even purchase them. How can such a farmer sustain himself? We face obstacles while undertaking any task or obtaining fertilizer. We kindly request that fertilizer be sold to us.
The people of Kokunnava in Nochiagama have been badly affected as a result of being unable to sell their produce. The farmers are facing difficulties in selling at least 500,000 kilos of pumpkins. There are approximately 500 families in this village. Farmers in the area have reaped a harvest of more than 500,000 kilos of pumpkins that had been cultivated across 1,000 acres of land. Although the government has instructed farmers to engage in farming, state officials have failed to follow up on the matter. Farmers complain that although they spend thousands of rupees to transport their produce to the economic centres in Tabuttegama and Dambulla, they have been unable to sell their pumpkins at a minimum cost of 10 rupees. I took my produce to Tabuttegama as I was unable to sell them there. I then took them to Dambulla. We are charged 5,000 rupees to go to Tabuttegama and 10,000 rupees to go to Dambulla. We are forced to sell our jewellery in order to settle our debt. We cannot face the banks now. We are now in debt even to the shop from which we purchase seeds. Although they have granted us relief, it is the repayment period which has been extended. They haven't suspended loan repayments. During the coming weeks, the farmers will have to reap the remaining harvest. However, they are facing a problem of selling them. We will be reaping harvest of around 300,000 kilos in the coming days. These pumpkins should be harvested within 55 days. However, 75 days have passed. In another 5 or 6 days, these vegetables will lose their quality and there will be no point of harvesting them. We will have to abandon our crops. We do not have any other means of living either.
Former Minister Patali Champika Ranawaka expressed the following views on the approvals granted by the government towards road construction projects when people have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The former minister pointed out that the cabinet had recently approved a proposal to construct expressways which include a 52-kilometre road stretch from Kahatuduwa to Ratnapura, a 32-kilometre road stretch from Pothuhara to Galagedara and a 17-kilometre stretch from Paliagoda to Athuragiriya.
The
cost for all these projects adds up to $5 billion. This amount can be double if the cost of land rises with other expenses including the payment for contractors and middlemen. $5 billion is not a meagre amount. The people should be informed of these expressway projects that are going to cost them at least 1 trillion rupees. We should ponder over the national level scam that is going to take place through these projects while the people's mouths have been sealed as they remain under lockdown. While requesting state servants to donate their salaries, stating that it will cost 100 billion rupees to pay them, they are awarding contracts worth 1,000 billion. In order to obtain the mandate of 6.9 million people, they made patriotic speeches by stating that local companies would be awarded contracts for construction projects. However, they are now handing over contracts at higher interest rates to foreign companies. Isn't this a massive scam that is being carried out in the country? These projects will go on for another 10 years. The country will become trapped in a debt and capital trap during these 10 years.
කිසිදු සංවර්ධනයක් කරන්න බැරි විදිහට ප්‍රාග්ධන උගුලක ණය උගුලක රට හිරවීම සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
Minister Bandul Gunawardena visited the proposed land allocated to build Sri Lanka's biggest international cricket ground in Diyagama, Homagama today.
26 acres of land belonging to the Mahinda Rajapaksha International Cricket Stadium in Diyagama, Homagama has been given to Sri Lanka Cricket to construct Sri Lanka's largest international cricket stadium within 3 years. This was done as part of measures to recommence stalled projects under the leadership of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. All arrangements have been made regarding this project. The stadium will be able to hold a capacity of 40,000 spectators while facilitating day and night matches and would be constructed in keeping with international standards. Construction activities will commence in the near future. They are constructing the largest ever stadium and the cricket university as a polite response to the criticism that is being levelled against the country's leadership.
Construction activities at the Bandaranaike International Airport, which was stalled due to the COVID-19, resumed today.
3 construction projects are taking place at the Bandaranaike International Airport. They are the refurbishment of the runway, the construction of a new aircraft pier and the construction of a passenger terminal. Upon inquiries made by Newsfirst, Airport and Aviation Services Limited said that the projects involving the refurbishment of the runway and the construction of the pier are in the last phase at present. The aircraft authority stated that the construction of the new passenger terminal is likely to be completed within the next 2.5 years. In addition to these, there are 2 main projects which are taking place at present. They are being carried out at a cost of 6 billion rupees. The contract has been awarded to Hazama Corporation. That project is expected to be completed within the next 3 or 4 months.
Sri Lanka billion
While authorities continue to focus on development in urban areas, locals in rural villages are yet to witness even a glimpse of development. This is yet another report of such a village.
This is how locals in the Kiran area in Batiklo travel across the Mukundrian Canal to reach the other end. The Akurana, Minuminuttaveli and Muruttathane villages provide shelter to approximately 200 families. Amid the run-up to the presidential election, on the 5th of October, a foundation stone was laid to construct a bridge. While the pledge to construct a bridge was only limited to a foundation stone, these locals continued to cross the canal with the help of an uprooted tree.
There are crocodiles in this canal. What else can we do? They laid the foundation, but nothing took place thereafter. Politicians visited and delivered speeches. That's all they did.
The Ministry of Education has permitted the use of calculators in 4 subjects at this year's GCE Advanced Level Examinations.
Commissioner General of Examinations Sanath B. Pujita stated that this facility will be made available for a few more subjects in the future. In a press conference held earlier today, former JVP parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayaka spoke on a number of issues in the education sector.
පාසල් අධ්‍යාපනය ගත්තොත් කොළඹ අධ්‍යාපන කලාපයකත් දරුවන්ගෙන් මේ අන්තර්ජාල අධ්‍යාපන කටයුතු සම්බන්ධ වීමට ඒ අදාළ උපකරණ තිබෙන්නේ 60%කට අඩු.
In schools, if you look at the Colombo district, internet facilities are only available in less than 60% of the schools. I say with responsibility, according to what principals of central colleges have told me, the lack of internet facilities has led to them not being able to begin e-learning. We are not saying that we do not support it, but we are telling the respective authorities not to count this e-teaching as a completing of the syllabus. Only about 60% of university students have these facilities, while of that, only 30% or so have the necessary equipment and can bear the expense for data. We asked the Ministry of Education, you all close schools on the 11th of March. If you have a date in mind to reopen schools, kindly provide at least that time span for these students before their exams.
කරන්න යන කාලයක් තිබෙනවා නම් අන්න ඒ පාසල් වසා දමාක තිබෙන කාලය එකතු කරලා අදාළ විභාග කටයුතු අවම වශයෙන් ආරම්භ කරන්න කියන එක.
In the face of the national effort to combat the COVID-19 virus, it was evident that the authorities did their best to provide those within the health sector with all necessities. But it was also reported that certain members of the health sector did not have sufficient transport services. We are broadcasting this news item while protecting the privacy of those concerned, not to put anyone at unease, but to bring the authorities' attention to these issues.
This was the transport facility provided to health staff at the Kandy and Peradeniya hospitals. Our reporters stated that employees have lodged complaints at the Peradeniya police requesting that they be given safe means through which to come to work. Meanwhile, journalists questioned Health Minister Pavitra Vanniarachi in this regard in Kandy this morning.
අලුතෙන් පත් වෙච්ච අපේ අමාත්‍ය
We have discussed this matter with the current Health Secretary and many other parties. Whether curfew is in effect or not, we have decided to continue the provision of transport services to all working in the medical sector. All facilities provided to medical staff are borne by the government. This is how it was from the start, and this will continue. If there is any issue, we must look into it, but there will be no change to our decision.
However, medical staff at the Kandy and Peradeniya hospitals left for their homes this evening in the following manner. Meanwhile, a set of essential medical equipment was donated to the Talangama hospital under the 5th phase of the Janasuya program.
Taking a look at an update of the COVID-19 situation in the country, the total confirmed COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka now stands at 970. 423 active patients are currently under medical supervision and 538 people have recovered thus far. KPMG says the COVID-19 outbreak will put pressure on the real estate market in Sri Lanka, particularly the office space market.
KPMG in a report points out that rental growth will suffer in the short and medium term as a result of low economic activity and negative corporate sector performance. Office occupancy rates are also likely to drop. Properties on short-term leasing options and expiring leases are the most vulnerable. KPMG points out that in order to maintain occupancy during such uncertain time periods, landlords could be well advised to expedite lease negotiations and by offering concessions on lease terms in the short run while ensuring faster deal execution. The residential real estate market has seen a lack of continuous demand. KPMG points out that more fundamental reforms in policies will have to be devised at a national level to attract foreign investment and expatriate demand in the market.
The Chamber of Construction Industry Sri Lanka said that approximately 250 construction projects in the Colombo district have been halted due to the prevailing situation in the country.
The government granted permission to all construction sites to commence operation with effect from the 11th of this month. However, the Chamber of Construction Industry Sri Lanka said that nearly 99% of construction activities in the Colombo district and suburbs have not resumed. The construction sector employs approximately 400,000 within the Colombo district itself, while nearly 80,000 of them are foreigners. The Chamber claims that with the prevailing situation in the country, many employees are reluctant to report to work.
Currently, there are approximately 200 billion rupees worth of construction contracts ongoing in Colombo. All of them have been temporarily halted. Contractors, suppliers and employees have all suffered losses. The government pledged to settle the dues of about 50 billion rupees to contractors in February. However, this did not happen.
Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the need to expedite the mechanism to protect small and medium enterprises in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country.
Apparel exports will lose 60% of the income. Tourism will have a very bad year. Foreign remittances will mostly be reduced by 20%. Economic impact is not limited to the reduction of foreign exchange earning. A large reduction in domestic revenue. The recent tax adjustments has led to a lower revenue collection. Lockdown affected the domestic markets. A significant portion of the domestic retail trade is based on imports. The ban on import is affecting these sectors. Faced with job losses as well as self-employment opportunities, there will be about 5 lakhs of people who will be unemployed. Government response to this is inadequate. Printing 200 billion rupees during a recession will only lead to inflation. The 50 billion rupees set aside is not sufficient. It's only 2% of the GDP. Most countries have contributed up to 10% of the GDP. The government must revise the import ban to allow domestic industries and trade to continue.
A group of Sri Lankans who are currently stranded in foreign countries have requested the government to allow them to return back to Sri Lanka.
We have been here for 2 months. Our lives are at risk. We informed the embassy 1.5 months ago, but we still haven't received an answer from them.
We are Sri Lankan agriculture government officers studying at the University of Philippines, Los Banos. We have come here to follow the postgraduate degree programs under the scholarship programs, and we have been stranded in the university dormitories and outside places, and the university has been closed for 2 months until further notice.
Speaking to Newsfirst, Additional Secretary to the President for Foreign Relations, Admiral Professor Jayanath Kolumbage, expressed the process of expatriating Sri Lankans trapped abroad.
We all know that our airspace is closed for inbound travelers because of the COVID-19. Despite that fact, Sri Lanka has brought nearly 4,100 Sri Lankans, mainly students, from many parts of the world, and we will continue this mission during the next 2 weeks also, and we are planning to bring more children and more Sri Lankans from about 7 more countries. The Foreign Ministry is playing a key role in this endeavor by providing the various lists, and the Presidential Secretariat is handling this entire complex issue under the direct guidance of the President.
India's new High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, said that New Delhi will help Colombo to deal with the economic challenges precipitated by the COVID-19 crisis. Speaking to Wire News, the new High Commissioner said this is going to be one of his very important tasks.
He added, with vision and commitment, Indian diplomacy is more than committed to adequately address the challenges posed by the COVID-19 situation. Speaking about repatriating Indian nationals from Sri Lanka, High Commissioner Bagle said, right now, Vande Bharat mission is underway. He said that they have established a 24/7 control room with a dedicated helpline, and we have got stranded nationals to register as well. According to the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka, around 1,200 Indian nationals are stranded in Sri Lanka and have registered to obtain assistance. The High Commissioner said that they are keeping in touch with the Indians very regularly, adding, we know exactly who they are and what are their requirements. India's new High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, presented his credentials to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in a ceremony that took place via video conferencing recently.
Today marks World Telecommunication Day, and in a situation like COVID-19, the use of information technology becomes even more important to stay updated on accurate news and information. The 17th of May marks the 51st anniversary of the signing of the first International Telegraph Convention and the creation of International Telecommunication Union. The purpose of World Telecommunication and Information Society Day is to help raise awareness of the possibilities that the use of the Internet and other information and communication technologies can bring to societies and economies, as well as of ways to bridge the digital divide. The day was coined by the United Nations General Assembly. Before 2015, it was just regarded as a World Telecommunication Day, and later the UN renamed it by adding an Information Society Day ahead. The theme this year is Connect 2030, ICTs for the Sustainable Development Goals. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in his message to mark the day, said, and I quote, "Information technology can be a beacon of hope, allowing billions of people around the world to connect. During the COVID-19 pandemic, these connections are more important than ever," unquote. And that's the wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Rasan. With me, our sign language interpreter, Taraka Gabriel. Thank you for joining us. Take care and good night.